In tonight's Tax Insider, costly and questionable animal testing studies. The Taxpayers Protection Alliance, in concert with the Animal Justice Project, just published its second in a series of reports. The goal is to expose examples of taxpayer-funded animal abuse. For more, I'm joined by David Williams, president of the nonpartisan Taxpayers Protection Alliance. Dave, before we get to your findings, give us some background. Why undertake this project in the first place?
Morris, thank you. This started about 2 years ago when our research team dug up that the NIH, National Institutes of Health, they were getting monkeys drunk to see how they would perform when they were drunk, when they were, on alcohol. And this was happening, and interesting, this was happening right during the Ebola crisis. This was happening during a time where tax dollars should have been going towards finding solutions to Ebola, not getting monkeys drunk. And so we actually heard from the Animal Justice Project, and they said, listen, there's a lot more than just monkeys getting drunk. There are a lot more issues out there, and we want to partner with you. So that's how this started, was just a kind of a simple tweet, a simple piece of research on monkeys getting drunk.
Now, your latest report outlines several examples of taxpayer-funded animal abuse. Here are a few. $31 million to inject morphine into rats' brains. $18 million to force squirrel monkeys to become addicted to heroin and cocaine. $4.7 million to coerce dehydrated monkeys to play video games. $4.6 million to shock rats' brains, then inject them with methamphetamine. And $2.6 million to encourage monkeys to binge drink to determine how that impacts perception. Now, Dave, generally speaking, who carried out these experiments, and again, why? I can understand that animal testing is necessary when you're rolling out new products. So, there are two sides to this story, but go on.
Well, there was one example you didn't mention. That was $8 million to figure out smoking effects on monkeys. And this was injecting nicotine into monkeys' brains. Now, here's the problem, Morris, is this piece of research, they actually would put a monkey in that. This is actually really disgusting, because they would put a monkey on a hot plate, 131 degrees hot plate. They would measure the pain response, and then they would inject the monkey with nicotine and then put him back on the hot plate to measure the pain response. So this is the kind of cruelty, but where this is happening, it's happening with taxpayer dollars, as you can imagine. It's happening at the National Institute of Health, the National Institute on Drug Abuse, but in particular, it's happening at small universities and big universities. The California Institute of Technology, the NIH lab in Bethesda. In Mississippi, there's a lab that's doing this. So this is really happening at universities across the country, whether it's Mississippi, California, or even here in our backyard.
So separate from any clinical research material that can be gained from this, you're just saying, hey, this is animal cruelty, right?
Well, it's animal cruelty, Morris, and also we're hearing from doctors that this has no merit. This has no scientific merit. They are not learning anything from this research, is that they're spending this money and killing these animals, and they're not gaining any knowledge from this to help us in drug addiction. So it really isn't helping science. Now,
before you go, Dave, let's cover a topic that some might consider just as depressing. The IRS audit. The deadline for filing your 2015 tax returns is Monday, April 18th, less than 2 weeks away. You're following one particular audit being adjudicated in the courts against Microsoft. Tell me more.
Well, first of all, Morris, I hope that your tax return wasn't burned in the IRS fire that happened earlier this week.
Right.
But this Microsoft, this is an interesting issue, because they were under an audit. They were undergoing an audit by the IRS back in 2007 for things that happened in 2004 and 2006. And the audit kept on dragging on, and Microsoft said, we want to pay. Whatever you say, we will pay, and let's just get on with our lives. And the IRS said no. So Microsoft, what they did was they filed Freedom of Information Act requests with the IRS, and what came out was that they were using a private firm. The IRS was using a private firm to do the audit, and we're talking about almost $3 million going to this private firm. And one of them had to be recused because the lead attorney was the lead attorney back in the year 2000 going after Microsoft for antitrust. So there's all these issues, and then all of a sudden, the FOIA request just disappeared, and the IRS refused to answer any more FOIA requests.
Wow. Why should the average American care about one audit against Microsoft?
because this is going to get bigger, is you have a company that's willing to pay. I mean, this is a company that's willing to pay, what the IRS says, and yet they are not settling. They're continuing this audit, which means more and more taxpayer dollars. But getting back to transparency, we talked about the Freedom of Information Act request. We submitted Freedom of Information Act requests. The IRS wanted to charge the Taxpayers Protection Alliance $17,000 for this information, and they said, we probably don't have the information to give you, but we still want you to pay that, even though your records won't be responsive, because guess what? We lost a bunch of hard drives that have the information on it.
All right, keep tracking our money. David Williams, president of the nonpartisan Taxpayers Protection Alliance. Thanks, Dave.
Thank you.